Welcome to the 2020 Swimming and Diving Rules Meeting for Coaches. This online version is the only available option for rules meeting credit this year.
If you're using a Chromebook or any device that has an internet-based operating system, we strongly recommend that you stop and use a different device to view this presentation. If you choose to proceed with using a Chromebook or other device with an internet-based operating system, be aware that your attendance may not be recorded or the presentation may stop. All users, regardless of the device used to complete this presentation, should take a screenshot of the last slide of the presentation as proof of completion in the event credit is not automatically awarded, and this screenshot is requested by the OHSAA.
My name is Lauren Prohaska, and I am now the Sport Administrator for Swimming and Diving for the OHSAA. I previously assisted Dr. Debbie Moore with the sport, but she has now retired. However, she is back on as a consultant for us, and she is working in both compliance and sport management, so she will be a big help throughout the swimming and diving season for me and for U.S. coaches. Also on this slide is RJ Van Almen. He is the Director of Development for Officiating. I look forward to working with all of you, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Just a friendly reminder that the NFHS swimming and diving rules are developed for both the boys and the girls swimming and diving programs, and these rules shall not be modified or set aside. No one in our office or in any of our member schools has that authority.
This slide contains the contact information for individuals who support swimming and diving in Ohio. Just a quick note that you will hear a lot from Dr. Debbie Moore in this presentation. Anything that hasn't changed from last year, I have left her slides in here since she is still remaining in a consultant capacity in sport management. The OHSAA office is here to help you and to serve you. Our website at ohsaa.org has significant information that I encourage you to check periodically on the swimming and diving page. Also, the Ohio High School Swim Coaches Association is a great resource for coaches, so I encourage you to check their website as well. The coach manual will be posted and available on the swimming and diving page by the end of this week, so it will be posted by October 16th. Finally, I will email coach memos every so often directly to your inbox, so look for those to come. This slide just shows the important dates for the 2020-2021 swimming and diving season.
Coaches, here are your officers. And again, in the manual is more information about the Swimming and Diving Coaches Association. You really should become a part of this association if you're coaching this sport in the state of Ohio.
I know everyone is anxious looking for the proper protocols for COVID-19 and how to conduct the swimming and diving season. So I wanted to let you know that those winter sport guidance documents with requirements and recommendations will be posted on our COVID resource page by the end of this week, so by October 16th. This information will also be available in your coach manual and posted on our website by the end of the week as well. Although it will be a lot of information, I really encourage you to take the time to read through it thoroughly and digest all of the information. If you have any questions, I encourage you to speak with your athletic administrator. They will be receiving this information as well, and I'm sure they will put a planning process in place just as they did with their fall sports. Just a reminder that these requirements and recommendations are for the purpose of keeping everyone as safe as possible, to allow us to continue sports and allow the kids to be able to participate. Our fall sport coaches and all of our athletic administrators did an excellent job this fall to follow the safety protocols and get us to a point where we are conducting our fall tournaments and starting our winter sports seasons. So I know you guys will do a great job as well, but I just really encourage you to read through all of that information when it's posted. Talk with your athletic administrator, and if there's still any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help.
Just a reminder that all coaches have to complete either the NFHS or the CDC concussion course when renewing or getting for the first time their pupil activity program coaching permit. This will make you compliant with both OHSAA and state regulations. Both of these courses are free and will allow you to generate a certificate of completion. You have to do this once every 3 years upon renewal of your permit. Remember, if you have a student, an athlete in swimming who shows signs or symptoms of behaviors consistent with concussion, then that student has to be removed from your practice or certainly from your competition. That player then is not allowed to return to practice or to competition on the same day as removal. Thereafter, that student cannot return to participate until you have received written medical authorization from a physician or from another medical provider if your Board of Education permits that. We have a lot of documentation about this, which you can read at these 2 links on the swimming and diving page and also within your swimming and diving manual. Obviously, in an education-based program, protecting athletic eligibility is important to you as a coach. You want to make sure that your students and their parents have access to athletic eligibility information, which can be found at the link displayed on the slide. Our rules do require that all schools conduct mandatory preseason orientation meetings. Usually your school will do that once per season as a general meeting, and then you'll probably break out to talk specifically to students and parents in your swimming and diving program. Failure to conduct these meetings shall result in a $500 fine per sport, so you really want to visit with your athletic administrator about this. We prepared a PowerPoint presentation to help highlight eligibility issues, your school's code of conduct, sportsmanship, ethics, and integrity issues, and safety. Please remember that when parents sign their consent for their son or daughter to participate in swimming and diving, on that consent form that accompanies their pre-participation physical exam, they're also indicating that they've read and they understand our athletic eligibility information items contained in this online bulletin.
Bylaw 921 is the out-of-state travel for competition bylaw. We continue to emphasize this as we have had to take teams out of the tournament for violation of this bylaw. However, there has been a major change, so I want to make sure I cover that. So Bylaw 921 permits you to travel out of state beyond the contiguous states in one Canadian province, only under the condition that you can do that one time per season. Previously, you were not permitted to miss school time for travel or competition. However, that is now a school decision to be made. So if you talk with your administration and they are okay with you missing school time, you are permitted to do this when traveling out of state to a non-contiguous state.
This is a regulation that's been around for a long time, dealing with comments to the news media. Please know that great care is exercised in selecting officials well in advance of the contest. Once you start that contest, you basically agree to who's going to officiate your competition. Public criticism of officials is a direct reflection upon those who were responsible for assigning those officials to the game or the competition. Our officials are trained and expected to make no derogatory comments regarding participants, coaches, or schools. Coaches are expected to follow the same procedure. Failure to follow this request, this regulation, will result in disciplinary action. Again, not a lot of issue in swimming and diving, but just a reminder of this regulation. On this slide, I just like to review the requirements to coach in Ohio. Whether you are a paid or a volunteer coach, you have to have a pupil activity program coaching permit. To obtain the permit, you must hold a current CPR card, complete an approved sports first aid course, submit to a BCI FBI background check, complete the NFHS Fundamentals of Coaching course, which you can take by going to nfhslearn.com, complete a concussion course, complete a sudden cardiac arrest course. And there's a link at the bottom that will take you to a review of all of these requirements for coaching permits. It's very important that you understand Sport Regulation 7.22. which deals with participation in a non-interscholastic contest. Once a swimmer or a diver has participated in a school contest, then that athlete shall not compete in a non-interscholastic or non-school contest until the season is complete. In other words, he or she has participated in the last school contest. There is a waiver process that can be granted by our office due to selection to a national team or based on prior past performance. For a waiver to be granted, it has to be requested by the school principal or designee, provide documentation, and that request will go to Lauren Prohaska, who is working with me in swimming and diving, and it can be submitted via email. This process is also outlined in great detail within your swimming and diving manual. This procedure, which was new for last year and is reflected in Sport Regulation number 4, deals with the emergency contact form. We want to make sure that only board-approved and properly credentialed coaches are going to be able to be down on the deck at any of our OHSAA tournaments. And this procedure really should be followed for all regular season meets as well. But in order for us to know who has been approved and properly credentialed, we ask that every school list all coaches on the emergency contact form for that sport. That form is found on the myOHSAA account and is handled by your athletic administrator. If you are not listed, then we are not going to allow you to be issued a credential. Our tournament managers and our staff will be checking these. So if you're not on there, you should expect you won't be issued a credential. So please check with your school administrator, your athletic administrator, to ensure that your assistants and you are listed on this form. I'm going to talk a little bit about entry limitations for our tournament. Please note that the individual entry limitations are specified in NFHS Swimming and Diving Rule 321, and they apply to our tournament series. Exceeding the entry limitations is a violation of eligibility standards and may be penalized whenever discovered, including after a competition has been completed. Each level of a tournament, and we have sectional, district, and state in this sport, is considered a separate championship competition, even though it is a qualifying event for further tournament participation. Hence, a competitor may swim or dive in a maximum of 4 events, no more than 2 of which shall be individual events in each level of tournament competition, and this includes preliminaries and finals of each respective level. For example, in district competition, and this is hypothetical because not all districts do things identically, a swimmer could swim in the 50 free and the 100 back, and as a member of the 200-yard medley and the 200-yard freestyle relays in the prelims. If this swimmer qualifies to the finals in the 100 back but not the 50 free, and both relays qualify to the finals as well, that swimmer is entitled to swim only the 100 back in both or either the 200 free relay and the 200 medley. He is not entitled to swim in a third relay, even though his school may have qualified that relay to the finals. Failure to qualify in one of the individual events in the prelims does not permit the athlete to exceed the entry limitations by swimming one individual event and 3 relays in the finals. That action would constitute competing in 5 events. And the penalty for that action is a DQ from the 5th event and from further competition in the tournament. In this case, the athlete would be disqualified from the 400-yard freestyle relay, and her team would forfeit points, awards, and qualification to the state tournament if applicable. If the same competitor fails to qualify for the next level of competition, which in this case would be the state tournament, in one of his or her individual events, and the school qualifies 3 relays, then the athlete could swim in the 1 individual event and the 3 relays at the state tournament. This would not exceed the event limitation, as the next level of competition is considered a separate championship event. Remember that by rule, schools may change the names of competitors on the relay cards when we're using them, and of course we do at the state tournament, and include any athlete who is on the eligibility certificate when the first level of tournament competition begins. It is not required that the slate of names remains the same throughout the tournament series. Please note it's the coach's responsibility to manage the entry limitations for his or her team. This is not a contest official's responsibility. Again, for our relay entries at the state tournament, up to 8 names can be entered on the card. In order to participate, the athlete may not exceed the entry limitations, and the athlete must be listed on the card. As most of you know, we've been using online entries for sectional tournaments, first level tournament, for many, many years, very successfully. Teams of 7 or more athletes or schools with individuals shall use the online entry method. Your sectional manager will provide details on the sectional tournament and the entry process. We're very excited to announce the introduction of para swim events debuting in 2020 at the district tournaments and in 2021 at the state tournaments after the major renovations that are being conducted at the CT Brandon Natatorium in the Canton City School District. Schools will be able to enter up to 4 para swimmers in 2 events, the 50-yard freestyle and the 100-yard backstrokes. The swimmers will qualify based on medical verification in 2 categories, and after meeting a time consideration. Para 1 will be the non-ambulatory athletes, those who use a wheelchair with limited use of their extremities. And Para 2 will include dwarfism, multiple limb deficiencies, and ambulatory with assistance. They may use a wheelchair, but with a high-functioning upper body. Page 14 of your manual has a lot more information on this opportunity. And again, we're very excited about this introduction. And I want to personally thank all of the experts in our field, including R.J. Van Ullman, our 4 district managers, our staff members in the Canton City School District, our Coaches Association officers who have really helped us put together just an excellent proposal and way to get these student athletes involved in the sport of swimming. I even hate to talk about this topic because fortunately we've not had very many instances of misconduct by student athletes, coaches, or other team personnel that would warrant an ejection or a disqualification from that event. In fact, there were none last year, and that's terrific. However, we do want you to know that it's necessary to provide a written interpretation of those acts that are considered ejections and shall require a 2-contest suspension for either the coach or the participant. So see your manual for those instances of conduct that we do consider unsporting, taken from your rules book. And please know that an official does eject an athlete or a coach from a contest. They're required to call the school administrator to report the ejection, submit in writing using an online form that ejection within 48 hours, and also to the school. And then those forms will be used to take any action that needs to be taken as a consequence of that ejection. This slide just reinforces Department of Health water depth standards. The NFHS rules require the minimum depth of 4 feet at the point of entry for racing starts during practice or competition, measured from a distance from the end of the wall to a minimum of 16 feet, 5 inches, which is 5 meters from the end wall. So if you're sponsoring swimming and diving, you've got 2 options. If you don't meet the standard, you can relocate your starting blocks to deep water, or you can start all races in the water and require all members of your relay teams to do the same. I'm not aware that we've had many issues with this over the last several years, but just wanted to remind you of those standards. This just reminds you of Ohio's administrative code regarding lifeguards. And it is the responsibility of the owner or operator of a facility, who is also known as a licensee, to make sure to follow the proper procedures and comply with regulations. We instruct our officials that if they have concerns about compliance, they should contact our office, and then we will contact the school or the facility administrators.
Just a reminder, if you want to enter a relay into the OHSAA tournament, your school shall have competed in a minimum of 2 interscholastic meets as a school team prior to January 25th, 2021.
I'm adding this slide this year because we've had several questions about girls competing on boys' teams. I want to let you know what our regulations read. First one, if you have a swimming and diving team with 7 or more girls participating, you shall, that's mandatory, have a separate girls' team in order to compete in the OHSAA tournament relay events. If you do not sponsor girls swimming, you may permit those girls to play or to participate on your boys' team. In other words, they will be boys, and they can participate on relays and individual events. Then at the end of this season, they can continue to compete in the boys' tournament or as an individual in the girls' tournament, provided you've registered as a girls' team. May not be sponsoring competition for them during the season, but you will have to have registered girls swimming. If a school has a girls and a boys swimming team, you must have separate contests. They may not compete at the same time. In other words, no mixed relays. And this is where a lot of questions are coming into play, because once you as a girl are participating on the boys team, then you can't go back and participate on the girls team until the end of the season, at which time you would have the option of entering the girls individual tournament, provided your school has entered girls into the tournament and you don't have a full girls team for the regular season. So you just need to adhere to these regulations. So the final word here is, please don't allow boys and girls to compete together, such as in a mixed relay event, if those girls intend to compete on a girls team for the rest of the regular season and the OHSAA tournament. This just reminds you that no school or individual is permitted to compete in any kind of school competition unless accompanied by a coach or a person authorized by the Board of Education. Sometimes we recognize there may be an emergency. This has happened during our state tournament, and the school will authorize a school administrator to accompany the swimmer or the diver to our meet, and will let us know about that in writing as much in advance as possible. But unaccompanied athletes will be disqualified from competition. Just remember that a school can schedule a varsity and a non-varsity contest on the same day. You want to be sure that you let opponents and officials know about this scheduling. This would not be exhibition competition. And all single-day athletic contests for swimming and diving shall be considered as one contest regardless of the scoring procedure used.
Just a reminder on the tournament rotation for 2021. It continues to be the same rotation and will remain that way in future years.
I always like to take some time to remind coaches in this sport, because sometimes you're going to be there as the head coach, as the only representative of your school when you're hosting an event. You know, we'd like to think that there's always going to be a site manager or a school administrator, even better, present when you're competing, but that's not always the case in sports like swimming and gymnastics and cross country. So you want to be sure that you understand that a basic premise of OHSAA rules is that someone is in charge. And if there's no school administrator there, that's you as the head coach. And you need to be prepared to deal with various situations that occur during competition. You need to understand crisis management plans, including the location of your AED and the protocol for contacting EMS if there's a medical emergency, whether it's for a participant, a coach, or for somebody in the stands. Unruliness, misconduct by fans is usually not a huge problem in swimming and diving, but if it occurs, you will have to be able to deal with that. Severe injuries, the hiring of scorekeepers, timers, judges, all of those things. The site manager or the coach is going to be the person in charge of executing those responsibilities. We have an event management manual that we publish that you may find helpful. It's fairly old, but it does take into consideration a lot of these issues that you may be confronting. NFHS rules require a pre-meet conference. For the regular season, the referee is going to meet with the starter, captain, head coach from each school, discuss meet procedures, special conditions, uniforms, pool conditions, sporting conduct. The coach is going to verify that all competitors are legally attired. More on that later. This usually takes place 30 minutes before the first event, and there should be no athletes in the pool during the conference. If you have a designated media area at your meets, it should be established before the meet begins. It may be more appropriate for photographers to be limited to areas adjacent to the starting area, and that's defined as behind the blocks. And when there is not a designated area for press or media or others, photographers can be limited to taking photos from the side and or the end of the competition pool. Again, flash photography is restricted during diving and during the starts of all swimming events. Just a reminder that the backstroke ledge is currently prohibited in high school swimming. I'm going to spend a little bit of time reviewing some of the rules relative to swimsuits. One swimsuit permitted, constructed of woven or knit material, permeable, will not aid in buoyancy, no zippers or fasteners, and style and shape appropriate for males and females. Issues with Rule 3 have become a bit of a problem across the United States. Coaches, you need to insist that your swimmers and divers wear suits of a decent appearance. I can guarantee you that we are requiring our officials to enforce this rule. Manufacturer's logo, one visible, no change here. Jewelry can be worn. This is changed a few years ago unless it's deemed dangerous by the referee. You do have to certify that everybody is appropriately equipped and attired. You can put American flag on your uniform, school name, school logo. Those things are all permitted on the uniform. We have decided here in Ohio to provide you with all of the guidance that has come from the National Federation to assist you with compliance and with the intention of the swimsuit coverage rule. You all know that that rule requires that both boys and girls wear suits that cover their buttocks, and girls in addition wear suits that cover their breasts. That's pretty clear in my opinion. But to help you, on pages 28 through 32 of your manual are some resources. Please take advantage of these resources, especially to address parents and student athletes regarding appropriate attire that is rules compliant and represents a safe and an education-based environment. As I mentioned just a minute ago, officials are instructed to speak directly to you as the coach if they observe a student who is out of compliance, so that he or she can fix the suit and avoid disqualification. We don't want to disqualify, but ultimately the responsibility for having athletes attired properly and in compliance with the rule rests with the coach. Here's what's going to happen if a student athlete presents with an illegal suit. When it's discovered by an official prior to a start of a heat, when reporting, find the coach, let him know if that athlete can make that uniform legal without delay, fix that suit, and he or she can compete. Once the competitor has stepped up onto the starting block, they must step down. They will be disqualified, and the direction will be given to the coach. That's you. Once the starting device has been activated, the DQ is made at the completion of the heat or event. We will make every attempt to notify you directly as the head coach, with the advice that you will advise your students to fix the suit.
I'd now like to turn this meeting over to RJ Van Almen, our Director of Development for Officiating in Swimming and Diving. He will cover the NFHS rule changes, points of emphasis, and any other rules interpretations.
Welcome to the 2020-2021 NFHS Swimming and Diving Rules PowerPoint. In the following slides, we will review rule changes, major editorial changes, and points of emphasis. All committee recommended rule changes are vetted through the NFHS Rules Review Committee before advancing to the NFHS Board of Directors for final action. The committee is comprised of all NFHS Director of Sports and chaired by the NFHS Chief Operating Officer. The NFHS writes playing rules for 17 sports, publishes High School Today, along with several other key publications totaling over 4 million pieces annually. The NFHS Rules and Casebook e-books are available for $6.99 each. To assist state associations in working with schools for the inclusion of students with disabilities, the following guide prepared by the NFHS Task Force on the inclusion of students with disabilities is being provided for your review. Following these guidelines will assist in the individual student assessment by the student and the school. When requesting a possible accommodation, coaches should work with their school and the state association as early as possible in the sports season. Contest officials shall defer decisions on rule accommodations to the respective state association. This information serves as a guide. Each state association may develop its own process. 2020 NFHS Swimming and Diving Rule Changes. Rule 111. The end wall is the vertical portion of the pool, contiguous surface of the deck and overflow gutter, the front of the starting block or platform, or a touchpad at the end of the course. The additional language provides clarity on what constitutes the end wall. The 2019-2020 rules book changed the definition of the finish of the race by permitting the swimmer to finish at the end wall versus the touchpad. That change necessitated a more concise definition of the end wall. Parts of the pool. Rule 111. Open spaces on the side of the blocks or the open space of the gutter are not considered part of the end wall. For the purpose of further clarifying the definition of the end wall, this slide indicates what should not be considered part of the end wall. Timers should be instructed to stop the watch at the first point of contact by the swimmer with any structural portion of the pool at the end wall, whether or not touch pads are being used. Rule 145. A dive round is the completion of one dive by each participant. Rule 146. A dive session is a series of dive rounds culminating in a break. Note, the remaining articles have been renumbered. The definitions of a diving round and a diving session were added to clarify the differences between the terms, which were currently used interchangeably in Rule 9. Diving sessions refer to preliminary rounds, semifinal rounds, or final rounds during an 11-dive competition. After the end of each of these sessions, there is a natural break as scores are tabulated and cuts are made for the next session of competition. Meet management may choose to permit divers to warm up during these breaks. Rules affected by this change. Rule 921. Practice dives are permitted during specified warm-up times. Rule 941D. In championship meets, the dives to be performed during each session of the championship competition are as follows. The Swimming and Diving Rules Committee wants to clarify that if meet management establishes diving warm-up protocol between diving sessions, this would be permissible and even encouraged. However, diving warm-up between sessions would be predicated on facility and time constraints and therefore is not mandated. Other rules affected by this change. Rule 942. The number of qualifiers for each session of competition is the predetermined number of divers with the cumulative highest score for all rounds of competition. Rule 944. After the preliminary session, the number of qualifiers shall be 4 more than the number of places to be scored. Rule 945. After the semifinal session, the number of qualifiers shall be equal to the number of places to be scored. The edits clarify that what constitutes preliminary sessions, semifinal sessions, and final sessions during an 11-dive competition. Uniforms. Rule 333, note, the FINA mark and/or individual barcode and/or the USA Swimming approved checkmark logo on certain suits designating that the suit has been approved for FINA and/or USA Swimming competition is not considered to be a second manufacturer's logo nor a form of advertising. Such suits with a FINA marking and/or checkmark, if otherwise legal, shall be legal for NFHS competition. USA Swimming will be implementing a new rule on September 1st, 2020 that does not permit 12 and under swimmers to wear technical suits at most meets. Some companies may submit a suit for approval by FINA that are not to be considered a technical suit, using it for marketing purposes. USA Swimming has developed a small check mark that will be placed next to the FINA logo so an official can see that the suit is legal to be worn by 12 and unders. This checkmark will be positioned next to the FINA marking and is not considered a manufacturer's logo or advertising. This rule is a clarification of what the swimming community may see on suits this winter as a result of rule change made by USA Swimming. A small checkmark will be positioned next to the FINA marking on some suits and is not considered an additional manufacturer logo or advertising. Rule 334C. Suits with a FINA marking and/or the USA Swimming approved checkmark logo, if otherwise legal, shall be legal for NFHS competition. This checkmark will be positioned next to the FINA marking and is not considered as a manufacturer's logo or advertising. These suits will be on the market for the 2020-2021 seasons, which means coaches and officials may see the new mark on suits this winter. Timing and judging. Rule 632. The official time is the time registered by touchpad, button, or stopwatch when a swimmer completes the race. The order of finish shall be determined by the integration of the official time for each lane. Since a legal finish can be accomplished by touching any part of the end wall, even if a touchpad is present, the result achieved by that legal touch must be regarded as the official time for the event. There is no rule foundation for the referee taking the pad time in preference to button or watch times. This rule change clarifies that other data points such as touchpad, buttons, or stopwatches may be needed to be used by the referee to determine the swimmer's time. A good rule of thumb is to remember the following. The official time is determined when the first point of contact is 1. Touchpad. That time shall be official. 2. Touchpad, but a malfunction is determined. Integrate backup time with results from other lanes. 3. End wall. Utilize backup system and other available data points to verify backup system is accurate, such as order of a finish, times in other lanes, etc. Rule 634. The backup system shall be operative for all races but shall be used only for lanes in which the automatic equipment malfunctions or time is not properly recorded. The rule proposal more accurately describes the protocol for determining an official time when the competitor contacts the end wall and not the touchpad. The backup system, meaning backup buttons or stopwatches, may be used in situations where the swimmer does not activate the touchpad or the touchpad malfunctions. This phrase clarifies conditions when the swimmer does not touch the touchpad initially. Rule 933, diving contestants. Entries by individuals. A diver officially becomes a participant when A. In championship meets, the official entry bearing that diver's first and last name, event, and school affiliation is submitted at the time and place specified by the meet manager. Headings were added to Rule 933 and 935 to help delineate the two-step process for diver participating in a championship meet. It is a two-step process of 1, entering the divers and swimmers into a culminating meet as part of a team entry submission, and 2, submitting the diving list or score sheet at the time or at a later time. Rule 933 defines how a diver is entered into the contest. These headings and wording changes are simply clarifications of the process. Rule 935, diving score sheets. Each diver shall submit a diving score sheet signed by both the contestant and the coach on the lines provided for those signatures, which includes the number, written description, position, degree of difficulty, with the number and degree of difficulty of the voluntary dives circled or otherwise clearly identified, and order in which the dives will be attempted for all levels of the competition, preliminaries through finals. The heading identifies and defines the protocol for submission of the diving score sheet. The diving score sheet is separate from the participant entry and continues to have its own deadline and penalties. Score sheets are to be submitted at the time and place specified by the meet manager. These headings and word changes are simply clarification of the process. 2020 NFHS Swimming and Diving Major Editorial Changes. Rule 492 in regards to timers. A head lane timer shall determine if the swimmer has touched the finish end, and for the 500-yard, 400-meter freestyle shall keep a written tally of the number of laps completed by the swimmer in that lane. Language was removed from Rule 492 to reflect the change that was made in the 2019-2020 season. The phrase finish end or touchpad if automatic timing judging equipment is used indicates that the touchpad takes precedence, which is not an appropriate description of the finish of the race. Appendix B has been added to assist officials with signals for the hearing impaired. The additional information was previously housed in the NFHS Swimming Officials Manual. This addition makes information more readily available. Included are the updated images of official signals for the forward and backstroke start, as well as images for modified starting positions. These guidelines are provided to assist state associations in working with schools for the inclusion of students with disabilities. Officials training prior to the start of the season should include review of these signals and procedures, and state associations may approve their use upon request without further authorization. Accommodations for students with special needs may be addressed through the rules and policies set forth by a variety of organizations, including Special Olympics, Disabled Sports USA, U.S. Paralympics, and USA Swimming. Contact information is provided in the beginning of the NFHS Swimming and Diving Rules Book. An accommodation may be permitted provided it does not fundamentally alter the sport, heighten risk, or place opponents at a disadvantage. 2020 NFHS Swimming and Diving Points of Emphasis. Communication between the referee and table. The meet referee is the head official for all competition with responsibilities and duties that include oversight of all other meet officials listed in Rule 4. This rule is especially critical in the area of timing, judging, scoring, and determination of results. It requires constant communication between the referee and the individuals responsible for these functions, especially the timing system operator and the meet management software operator. To ensure the meet progresses without unnecessary delays, the referee should be in constant communication with the table throughout the meet. The NFHS Swimming Officials Guidelines Manual lists several items to consider. Prior to the start of the contest, the referee should meet with the table personnel to review responsibilities related to starts, finishes, registration of the proper number of laps completed, entry limits, and reporting any discrepancy between the touchpad times and the backup times to the referee. Establishing the official time. A legal finish requires the competitor to contact either the touchpad or the finish end wall, defined in Rule 111, according to the finish rules pertaining to the stroke being swum. This means that the initial point of contact with the end wall determines the final time for that lane, as well as the final results for that heat. The referee must understand the tools that are available to determine that final time. Order of finish, determined by human finish judges, referee, touchpad, button, watch. When the referee determines that the swimmer's first point of contact at the finish of the rate is A, the touchpad, that time will be the official time. B, the touchpad, but a difference of more than 0.3 of a second between the automatic time and backup time indicates a potential malfunction. The referee determines that such a malfunction has occurred and a backup time for that lane shall be integrated into the results from the other lanes to determine the order of finish. C, not the touchpad. The official time shall be registered by the backup system for that lane, semi-automatic button or manual watch. If other information supports the legitimacy of the human-generated time, order of finish, times in other lanes, etc., that is the official time. The referee is the head official and is responsible for making decisions on matters not specifically covered by the rules and can order that a race be reswum when there is obvious unfairness, such as a lane line malfunction or a power outage. In the case of a timing malfunction, the referee is expected to utilize other information or data such as his or her order of finish, times on other lanes, etc., to verify the single data point, such as a watch or button, is accurate. Referees have the authority to reject times that are clearly inaccurate and to determine placing without assigning a specific time to a swimmer. Diving entries. The diver entry process for championship meets continues to be a point of concern. Changes to Rule 933 and 935 clearly define what constitutes the official entry of a diver. The two-step process for championship meets consists of 1, entering the divers and swimmers into a culminating meet at a time specified by the meet manager, and 2, submitting the dive list or score sheet at a specified time and place. The referee will permit changes in the dive list until 60 minutes prior to the start of the diving competition. The penalty for not submitting a complete diving score sheet at the specified time and place is disqualification. Divers must be included as part of the team entry to assure compliance with entry limitations. Diving is one of the individual events of competition. The state association or meet host must publish the required procedure for diving entries for each championship level meet. Language and official signals regarding the inclusion of students with a disability now appear in the 2020-2021 NFHS Swimming and Diving Rulebook in Appendix B. Included are updated officials signals for the forward and backward start. Specific accommodations for visually impaired and hearing impaired competitors are also provided. These guidelines are provided to assist state associations in working with schools for the inclusion of students with disabilities. Officials training prior to the start of the season should include a review of these signals and procedures, and the state associations may approve their use upon request without further authorization. Accommodations for students with special needs may be addressed through the rules and policies set forth by a variety of organizations, including Special Olympics, Disabled Sports USA, U.S. Paralympics, and USA Swimming. An accommodation may be permitted provided it does not fundamentally alter the sport, heighten the risk, or place opponents at a disadvantage. 2020 NFHS Swimming and Diving Resources. The NFHS Swimming and Diving publications are available to order online or by using the toll-free number 1-800-776-3462.
This is the final slide for the 2020-2021 Swimming and Diving Coaches Rules Meeting. Please note that there will be no email confirmation for rules meeting completion. However, your rules meeting credit should appear immediately in your myOHSAA profile. So go ahead and take a look at that and make sure that has occurred. If it hasn't, please see your athletic director to make sure your account is tied to your school first. If it's still unsure or unclear, please reach out to me and we can get that settled. However, I do recommend that you take a screenshot of this final slide just in case we need it to credit you for this meeting. I'd also like to thank each of you for all your hard work and dedication to the sport of swimming and diving. I look forward to a great season, and please know that I'm here to help in any way should you need it.